Welcome to Shamanic Storytelling. In this video, I'm going to continue with the theme of recurring dreams. In the last video, I described a recurring nightmare that I had for several years about an abandoned chapel and how that story resolved very positively by the end. Today, I'm going to share a story about an even stranger experience where I had a recurring dream over multiple decades, on the order of 30 years. And I call the theme of this recurring dream the strange old house. And the strange old house has become an old familiar friend to me at this point. It's almost like a person, and it has its own personality. And the recurring dream that occurred over so many years eventually resolved, and in fact, only in the last few months. And it resolved through a shamanic journey that I chose to take to bring it to a conclusion. And it took all those years for me to really get to the bottom of what it was all about. So in this dream, when it first occurred, I was in a neighborhood and I discovered that I was the proud owner of a strange old house. And when I took possession of the house, I found that the front side of the house looked like an ordinary house, but the back side of the house was boarded up and off limits. I couldn't even get into it. Inside of the house, there were boarded over doors, and I could not enter into that space. And it filled me with an indescribable horror to know that there was something on the other side that I did not have any access to, didn't know what it was, and it felt extremely, extremely creepy. As the years went by, the house morphed. It would be a different house in different dreams. It didn't even look the same from dream to dream. But the one commonality was that it had a rather shabby, creepy, and run-down section that I was unable to access. Sometimes the house had a strange design features. It had bulkheads that were there for no reason that could be discerned. The front of the house would be okay, but that other side, who knew what was going on over there? As time went on, there were occasions where I found myself able to access that other side. Very surprisingly, I would have a dream where I was in the strange old house, whatever version of it that was that time, and I would then be able to see the rooms that had been off limits. Now they were open, and I would find they were rather shabby, but not too scary. They might have some furnishings. They mostly needed to be cleaned and maybe remodeled, but not that scary, just odd and a little bit off-putting, like it makes you a little bit uneasy to see it like this. Over time, the part of the house that was boarded over or off limits became smaller. Suddenly it was just a room in the house. And eventually, after about 25 years of having this dream, there came a dream where I was in the strange old house, and the only thing that was an odd section of the house was a compartment above the mantle in the living room. So it was a long, oblong container that was built into the wall, and it was nailed shut, and that's all there was that was off limits, was a small container. Well, a few months ago, after a hiatus for the strange old house dreams, there was another one. And in this one, I was living in a 3-story apartment building that I owned that had 2 flats above the one that I was living in on the ground floor. And I had access to the first floor and the second floor, but the third floor, again, was boarded off, could not access it. From the street view, the windows of that part of the house were boarded over. And as I was in bed in the ground floor apartment's bedroom, I felt that same familiar feeling of dread again. Why is this off limits? What is up there? I start trying to reassure myself, well, as long as it's boarded over, I shouldn't worry about it too much. But I did. And I decided that I needed to get to the bottom of this. And why was this dream still occurring after all these years? So I knew on some level over all these decades that the strange old house represented my own self. It represented my own psyche. In a lot of psychological schools where the symbols of dreams are studied, houses and buildings, especially houses, can symbolize the self, your own psyche. So I knew on some level that that's what was going on. And I've been on a very long journey, about 30 years of self-healing and soul development, many healing modalities, therapy. And I knew that the dream would morph and shift and change because I was morphing and shifting and changing. And things that I had in my shadow, things I denied about myself, things that I was ashamed of, a lot of that was good stuff that I rejected, I was now reclaiming, and it was coming to light. So that's why eventually I got down to just a compartment in the house, not a whole half of the house. But I was ready to give this dream a rest. So I was with a group of people that we meditate together. And sometimes while the group is meditating, I will go off on my own shamanic journey and just quietly have a shamanic journey while everybody is meditating. So I decided to go back to the scene of that dream and to go to the third floor of that apartment building and to take ownership of it, to claim whatever was there and to make it mine. So in the shamanic journey, I arrived at the building and I was able to go to the third floor, and I could see that it was a Victorian apartment. It was pretty much empty, but it was very run down. And so I called upon a team of contractors who came and were working beside me, and we began to demolish the interior. We did a demo. We had a chute that we used to send debris down to the ground level from out one of the windows. And we totally stripped everything. We rebuilt everything. We painted everything. I brought furniture in. You can do a lot in your shamanic journeys. You have the power to do that. And by the end, I had an apartment that was livable, that was beautiful, that was uplifted, that was artistic. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a beautiful big living room, a dining room, and a huge kitchen. And there was a staircase that went from that floor down to the second and then down to the third floor. So I basically had reclaimed the entire building for myself. And when that journey ended and I rejoined my fellow meditators, I was in awe because I felt that that dream was not going to happen again. And in my conscious world, where I set my intentions, I set the intention to embrace the totality of my life, to claim all my power and to claim everything that was mine, and to never again reject any part of myself. And so I sealed it. I sealed that conclusion of that journey with those intentions. And I feel now in my heart and my soul that that dream of the strange old house has come to an end. So this is your shamanic storytelling for today, a recurring dream occurring over many decades. And as always, I share these tales in order to help you feel unafraid of the dark, unafraid of the unseen, unafraid of the unknown, and most important of all, unafraid of yourself and what's inside of you. In the next video, I will be talking about a recurring nightmare that I helped a client of mine in my shamanic practice to resolve. And he was having this dream from the time he was 5 years old until he was 35 years old, when we were able to do a soul retrieval for him in a shamanic session that put this nightmare to rest finally. So I will share that with you next time. Thanks for coming and listening to my shamanic storytelling.